So we are ready to begin into chapter 2, which is our next topic, which is percentages. So when I see the word percentage, then I have to understand what the definition is, and then we should be able to see a direct correlation between unit 1, where we talk about rates, unit rates, ratios, and the idea of percentages and how they go together. So please be sure, once again, that you are following along, that you are taking notes and filling out your book. Number one, it's what I ask you to do, so therefore it's what I expect you to do. And number two, it'll help you to go back and be able to look at anything that we're working on in our books so you know what to do on your assignment. Now, this assignment should be relatively easy, as I've said earlier in class. This is a topic that you guys have already learned and studied in school, so it shouldn't be difficult. It's really just a review at the very beginning when it comes to dealing with percentages. So when I look at percentages, what I want you to mark in your book is, number one, what it is that they intend for you to be able to do. All right, so the number one goal here is that you understand that when we talk about percentages, we're talking about a number or a grouping out of 100, right? So if it's out of 100, then if I say I have 17 out of 100, or if I have 20 out of 100, then I know that that's going to be 17% or 20% respectively. So as I work with the understanding of what this definition is, then please mark that in your book that we're talking about a rate out of 100. When we write a percent, we will start with it in either a ratio form with the colon, the word to, TO, or shown it as a fraction. So when I show it as a fraction and I see that my denominator is out of 100, then I know I have a rate out of 100. That's why it is a percentage. When I do these type of problems, then once again, this is very basic in introduction of what you've done before. Then please notice that we're dealing with grids. It says it's a 10 by 10, and if you don't believe it, you're more than welcome to count it. But it is going 10 across and 10 going down on the side. So 10 times 10 is 100. So I know each of those grids or each of those boxes is divided up into 100 equal pieces. Therefore, each row going across is going to be 10, and each column going up and down is also going to be 10. So I do my own little indicators when I'm trying to figure out what a percentage is by simply counting them. If it's a whole row, I'm just counting by ones. And if it's individual, then I count each individual square and then I circle it. That way I know that I'm talking about how many groups of tens and then how many groups of ones that I'm talking about. So when it asks to identify how many shaded squares you have here, well, then if each row is 10, I just have to count how many rows are shaded in this first example. And we have a total of 5. Therefore, if there are 5 of them that are shaded and each one is worth 10, then if you go all the way over to the side in your notes, you can show that 5 times 10 gives you 50. Therefore, I know there are 50 squares that are shaded. Well, then I go down to my ratio form and it asks, well, if that is 50 out of 100, then what does that look like in a ratio form? So I know that in my ratio form with a colon, I have 50 to 100. Or in my ratio with the word to, then I have 50 to 100. And then if it's in the fraction form from a ratio, I know I have 50 over 100. No matter how I write it as a ratio, as long as it is comparing it out of a group of 100, then I simply know that that second number, the 50, is going to be my percentage. So when I have 5 rows out of 100 that are shaded, then I have 50% of that original grid or original box that is shaded. When I do the next one, then I'm going to do the same thing. Once again, I like to show it where I am counting with whole numbers my rows of tens, or in this case, we'll count by columns. And then I just count how many individual boxes I have and circle it to indicate how many ones I have. So in my columns, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 complete columns going across. And then individually, I have 2 ones. Well, 60 and 2 make 62%. I don't believe anyone would find that difficult, but if you don't see where we got it, please. So on example 2, then, this gets into the idea of I'm going to give you a grid, a 10 by 10, right, a block of 100. and I want you to show me what that percentage would look like. So if I'm going to show you what 17% looks like on a 10 by 10 grid, then I'm going to start coloring in 17 blocks. Now, here's a word of wisdom from the experience that I've had teaching sixth grade. So we just most recently did Go Math, and before that, we did Saxon Math. And we've had to shade in grids for percentages in all the years that I've done sixth grade math. And people want to do all these fancy and cute designs with their blocks on their grids to show their percentages. But when they do these fancy designs, they often lose track of how many they've done. I'm not telling you can't do fancy designs with the 17 blocks that you need to shade in. I'm just suggesting that you make sure that you have 17. I'm going to make it as easy as possible. I'm just going to do either columns or rows, and then I'm going to show how many individuals I'm going to be coloring in. If you just make sure you've done it correctly, then you're going to be okay either way. So when I know that I have a 17% out of a block of 100, then that's going to be 17 that I need to model. Therefore, I have to color in 17 squares. So I'm going to do a column. I want to fill in one whole column. I know that's automatically going to be 10. I could have gone across and done a row instead and made sure they were all filled in. That would be 10. But then I need 7 individual ones. So I got to make sure that I color in 7. You can go up from the bottom and say, well, I need to leave 3 blank out of 10. So 1, 2, 3 are blank, and then start shading up. Whatever makes sense best to you, it's where you're going to be successful doing it. So then the answer would be, well, how many of those blocks did you color in? The answer should be 17. We would do the same thing when it comes to the next one, because as it's talking about with the newspaper survey, then we have 14% that were asked in this particular survey that I need to show on my grid of 10 by 10, or once again, 100 blocks. So I have to shade in or model 14%. So now I'm going to do a row instead. So I'm going to color in all the way across. That's 10, and then I need 4 additional ones. So once again, it doesn't matter where you do it, as long as when I go to grade your assignment, I can see that you have 14 blocks colored in. Hopefully there's no confusion there, but if there is, please ask before you move on. Now they're going to say, well, instead of using the graph or the grid of 100 blocks, now I'm going to be using a bar diagram. This book adoption really likes to use the bar diagrams, and for some of you, it may be a lot easier. We'll get into quickly in our lessons where I'm not going to be drawing bars. I'm just going to do the math to figure out how many individual groups we're talking about. But in this particular bar example, then they're going to take 100% shown on one entire bar, and then I have to see how many sections it's divided into. So when I look at that, I see that I have 10 individual sections, and just as we talked about with the grid, 10 times 10 is 100. So I know each of those is going to be worth 10%. So there's 10 boxes, 10% in each. 10 times 10 is going to give me my 100%. So if I have it filled out, if I have a bar filled out and it's divided into 10 equal boxes, then whatever the percentage is how many of those boxes I would need to fill in. So if I have 10%, I have 1 box that's going to be filled in. If I have 40%, then I have 4 boxes that are going to be filled in. 7 for 70 and 9 for 90. Don't think that that's too complicated. Where it gets a little bit more complicated then is when we have smaller measures. So up above on page 81, then I just duplicated the image they gave us, but they're telling us we have 10 equal size boxes for the bar that they've set up, which is going to be, once again, equal to my 100% there at the end. So each one of those represented 10%, right? Because 10 times 10 is 100. Well, now down here at the bottom of page 81, now they've got it a little different. Now we're going to say, well, I need to be able to represent 5% for each box that I'm doing. If I still have a total of 100%, but I need each one to equal 5%, well, if I take my handy-dandy calculator and type in 100 divided by 5 equals, I'm going to find out that I have 20 equal boxes, which is what they've told me. So now I have 20 equal boxes, which, okay, because when I do numbers, sometimes instead of having a nice even 0 at the end of my numbers, I am going to have a 5. So that will make it easier as long as I can do my multiplication. And if we're just not sure what it is that, or how many boxes it is that I need to shade in, then I would just take, the number that I'm trying to go for divided by 5, and that would tell me. Such as, we all ought to know that 1, it's going to be 5%. But if I wasn't sure, I would take my handy dandy calculator and take 5 divided by 5 equals, and that would tell me to shade in 1 box. If I was doing 15 and I just wasn't sure how many to shade in, then if I know I need 15% and I each equal 5% because there's 20 boxes, then I take 15 divided by 5 equals, that tells me I need 3 of those boxes shaded in. 55 times 11 would be, 5 times 11 is 55. Therefore, I need 11 of those boxes shaded in to show me 55%. And 85%, if you're not sure what to multiply by, then I would take 85 divided by 5 equals, and I'm going to see that I need 17 of those boxes shaded in to make up my 85%. So when I get into these type of examples, then sometimes they're going to tell me what they each equal, and sometimes they're not going to tell me what they each equal. So if I know that I have 100% in my box, right? Well, then what is each one going to be equal to? Says the bar diagram is divided into 10 equal size sections. So if I go back to example 1 on the previous page at the top, so 10 equal boxes, that's 10% for each. Okay, I'm good there. So each section is going to represent 10%. Well, how many sections are shaded? So then when I count going across the top, I find out that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, there's 8 of them. So I have 8 boxes that are shaded in. Therefore, that total percent is what? Well, I know that each one is worth 10%, which is what they show you there, and I have 8 of them. So 8 times 10 gives me 80%. So the percent that's represented in that diagram is 80%. Where it's not as easy is when I'm looking at the next one for the check. It doesn't tell me what the value of those are. So I have to figure out how many boxes are drawn to show me my total 100%, right? And then what the values are. So if I take 100, because I know that's my total value, and I divide it, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes, right? So then I'm going to divide by 5, and that tells me that the value of each of those boxes is 20%. So if each one is worth 20%, and I've shaded in 2 of them, then 2 times 20, well, that's going to give me my 40%. So the question being, how many or what percentage of the box is shaded in? 40% of that box is shaded in. Notice that I have my percent sign on my answer, because if it's asking me for my percent, then the percent sign is my label. So showing the work on how you got the answer, having the 40, and then showing me your percent sign, that means these are mostly worth 3 points. All right, so your assignment is in front of you. You will not be doing question 8 on the front. You will not be doing the last 2. I'm really hoping this is 100% for everyone, that it's nice and easy. This is less than 15 minutes, so you can go back and rewatch it many times in our 90-minute class. But please come and ask me questions if you have questions. Ask Mrs. Gallagher, ask Mrs. Bloss. We're all here to help you. I know Mrs. Williams comes in for about 30, 40 minutes each day also. We're here for your support. All you have to do is ask.